Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sports Talk. I'm not exactly sure where we are, but I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about Pittsburgh sports at some point. I'm your host, Casey Irwine, and the two guys joining me today are two victims of Manchester United, a young gun who gets too much dip on his chip very often, Nick Evans, and a guy who definitely won't be worried about the fact that next year's Super Bowl is on Valentine's Day, Josh Woodman. Fellas, how are we doing to start this new year on Sports Talk?
Oh, I'm doing just so good. I'm just so excited for this show.
Josh?
You sound like it, Nick. Yeah, you sound very
Josh,
enthusiastic.
you don't sound excited.
Josh is
I'm
Josh
just
is
here to do
upset.
my
Josh,
job.
what are you upset about?
I'm very professional
Josh is
today.
a downer,
I'm ready to go.
and that's okay, because this show's not going to be a downer, and let's get right into our topics as we are loaded up today. Last Monday night, Indiana took down Miami in a thriller of a matchup to win their first national championship. This season, they were led by quarterback Fernando Mendoza, who won the Heisman Trophy and had a stellar performance in the championship game. With the number one overall pick in the draft on the horizon for him, where does this season put him all time? Josh?
You know, Casey, we've been on a bit of a break, and so I've had a lot of time to think about this question. Had time to watch a lot of Fernando Mendoza play some football, and I just think in terms of all-time seasons, out of every college football player, and you know, most of the time you're going to compare him to a Heisman since he did win it this year, I was not moved by him. You know, I still think he's behind Burrow. In terms of QB, yeah, he's probably in there in the top 10, but I just think overall, top 20, top 15 is more reasonable because, yes, he was very efficient. He looked very, very impressive on an Indiana team that did impressive things all year. But I think overall, there's still players like Reggie Bush, Derrick Henry, Charles Woodson, and Ashton Jeanty,
How are you not moved by the guy who single-handedly won the national championship for his team?
These are all players
Nick,
who single-handedly,
like
yeah, that's a ridiculous
had a very
take.
good defense.
They did have a good defense. What do you think about the offense?
They had a
Josh,
top 5 offensive line. They had 3 really good receivers. They had a fantastic run game.
Name the receivers, Josh.
Surratt was one of the receivers on top of that. They all have guys who are high amount of draft picks. I just don't understand how you can sit there and say, if you're having your Heisman moment,
offensive players will not be drafted high. Think
listen,
about Joe Burrow.
If you're having your Heisman moment,
Josh, let Nick
think about Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase. He had Justin Jefferson on his offense. Name one of Mendoza's receivers right now.
Surratt. Elijah Surratt.
Okay.
He was very impressive. And he's a guy who's probably going to go in the top 3
stars. These guys are not 5 stars. They're not guys who are going in the draft. They're
You're right. They're all transfers in because that's all of Indiana's team.
What Mendoza was able to do, a national champion, a Big Ten champion, a Heisman Trophy winner at a school that was nothing. This school was nothing. They couldn't even sell out their stadium for homecoming games. This school was awful. Bring in Signetti, bring in Mendoza. These are all 4 stars, no 5 stars, and you go 16-0. First team in modern college football.
Nick, you seem to be very big on Mendoza here, but I've got a comparison here, and Josh and I were talking about this before the show, who I think actually, by the way, Kenny Pickett, I think, is more impressive than Fernando Mendoza.
Kenny Pickett in
when
his
you look
year
back at
looked more
Kenny
impressive.
Pickett,
We're
who was
Kenny Pickett, who
third
plays
in the Heisman voting,
but
played 13 games, 4,300 yards, 42 touchdowns, third in the Heisman besides 47 touchdown Bryce Young, first overall pick Aiden Hutchinson. Fernando Mendoza played 16 games, had less yards, less touchdowns, won a Heisman race, who second place was Diego Pavia, who had 29 touchdowns and had to lie about his height to NFL teams.
I guarantee Mendoza had a better passing rate than those guys. He protected the ball way better than those guys.
Kenny
where's
Pickett?
Where's Pickett? Pickett wasn't even good enough to stay in Cleveland.
His Heisman moment came in the last game of the year. Other than that, he provided nothing.
Well, we'll see what the future holds for Fernando Mendoza, but it's going to be a rocky ride here for what they have to say about him. But with all the conference realignments these past few seasons, the Big Ten seem to have come on top. As with Indiana's win over Miami, the last 3 national champions have been from the Big Ten. Does this make them the best conference in college football, or does the SEC still have enough talent to be considered the best? Nick?
I don't even know why we're mentioning the SEC in this. I mean, the Big Ten, you just said it yourself. They won 3 straight championships. And think about the teams that in the SEC that are floundering in the college football playoffs. They're not winning games. This year, the semifinals, 2 Big Ten teams in Oregon and Indiana. I mean, you have teams adding into the Big Ten that are still competing, like from the Pac-12, whenever that disbanded, when you have Oregon, USC will win sometimes. Washington was in the national championship against Michigan, so that's another team you added in. What has the SEC done in recent years? I mean, try and counter-argue that.
I completely agree, Nick. I just think the SEC is, it's living off its namesake. It's the fact that you still have such dominant, storied teams as Georgia and Alabama. And Georgia, while they are still dominant, I mean, we haven't seen them really kind of go toe-to-toe as much with the Big Ten teams. And when they have, it hasn't really turned out well. And I think a lot about like some of the big recruiting teams, like Ole Miss looked really exciting. LSU obviously had those big years a couple years ago, and they've fallen off. I just think if it wasn't for the fact that these teams had their names and it wasn't for the fact of the success they built off of last decade, you wouldn't really be talking so much about them. It'd be, the Big Ten is just automatically better. And then when you compare it to other than the SEC, what is there? I mean, you got the ACC with Clemson and Pitt and other teams who can't get their act together.
I honestly believe that in the ACC, there's about 7 to 8 teams in the Big Ten that would win the ACC.
I mean,
Duke.
agree.
Duke is a Rutgers in the Big Ten. I mean, what are we doing? And they won the ACC.
I mean, the argument here is also as well with the SEC, you kind of have more actually good teams, whereas the Big Ten, it's kind of just a few heavy hitters, and one of those heavy hitters is Michigan, who is not the same team for sure.
No,
kind
that's,
of on
that's
and
very
off.
fair. But like when you have like Texas's whole thing was going to start, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. But Texas's whole thing was they're going to show how good they are in the opening game at Ohio State, and then Ohio State won. And yes, it was a low-scoring 14-7 affair, but it just we keep waiting for these SEC teams to assert their dominance, and it just never happens.
Yeah, but the argument also is as well, I mean, these heavy hitters for the Big Ten, besides Ohio State, none of them are really good every year, whereas in the SEC, most of those teams, I mean, Texas, yeah, they had a down year, but they still were
Are you going to say that they're not good every year whenever? So you're saying that the teams aren't good, but the Big Ten goes on to win the national championship.
I'm just saying
those teams
outside of
can't
those
compete.
heavy-hitting teams,
You don't think Oregon
the
has been
SEC
good?
might be
I think a lot of these teams are going to be
challenging.
here to stay from here on out. I don't think Indiana's just going to disappear off the face of the earth over
Indiana's
the
the
next
next
3 years.
dynasty. It's
Yeah,
the next
exactly.
Saban in
Ohio
Alabama.
State's going to still be good. Michigan's going to keep contending. Like these teams are all going to hang in there.
Well, we'll see if the SEC makes a comeback or if the Big Ten keeps dominating. And hey, maybe we get a MAC national championship at some point. Well, now that the college football season is over, it's time to look back and reminisce. Specifically, it's time to look at some teams who probably won't want to reminisce themselves. So, Josh, who was the biggest disappointment this season in college football?
Well, Casey, I just shouted them out. It was Texas, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty obvious who the 1 and 2 is here, and we'll have to see what Nick says. But I think it's pretty obvious Texas is going to be my one. Just the fact they were unanimous favorites in both the AP and the college coaches poll. You lose the first game against Ohio State in Ohio State. Yeah, that can be, you can write that off. It's a tough first game. But you had a top-ranked defense. You had lots of good returning players. You had the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft with Arch. And it turns out now you're just talking about running it back next year with the hopes that something's going to change. I'm not here to talk about what Texas's future is going to be. I'm here to talk about last year. Last year, the fact that their one achievement was beating Michigan in the Citrus Bowl or whatever it's called, it just kind of means nothing at the end of the year when you're projected to be the best team in all of college football. So I think they're easily the favorites, or I mean my favorite to be the biggest failure in college sports.
Texas was in control though at the end of the year, almost getting into the college football playoff. And
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, my pick had it miserable. I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm reliving the same horror over and over again on this show. Penn State was the biggest failure. Maybe not even college football, but maybe sports in general. You bring back everybody. You bring back Drew Aller. You bring back Nick Singleton. You bring back Keyshawn Allen. You bring back big stars on the defense and the offense. James Franklin, who no one believed in, but maybe this was the year. They got to the semifinal and they were one Drew Aller stupid moment away from getting to the national championship. And then you have a heartbreaking loss to Oregon in the whiteout, which has been proving to be the biggest fraud ever lately. And then you follow it up the next week by playing a UCLA team that has never led in a game, and you blow it. They look like they're superstars against you. And then you lose to Northwestern.
I just think, I think your criteria kind of changes on like your outlook once you fire your head coach midseason. And so I do think that while Penn State was, yes, obviously another big failure, the fact that Texas kind of just kept going with what they had, they didn't change anything up or anything like that. It just kept going, and the fact that they never ever came out on top of anything just kind of really shows. Like I said, Penn State, yeah, also a big failure, but you fire James Franklin. Aller is out for the year after UCLA.
I mean, here's the thing when you look at it, guys. Texas was the preseason number 1 team, and so while Penn State fell harder. You can say in terms of expectations, maybe Texas did become more of a disappointment, even though it seems like Penn State were such a big failure.
I would argue that Penn State was picked more as a national championship than Texas was. I mean, a lot of people, we didn't know what Arch Manning had in Texas, but we knew that Drew Aller was supposed to be the guy in Penn State, and it never amounted to anything.
Well, we'll see if both of those teams can have a bounce back next season and if Arch Manning can amount to anything. But guys, when we come back here on Sports Talk, big news, the Steelers have hired their 4th head coach since 1969. To get the guys' takes on it, you won't want to miss it here on Sports Talk.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover their unique mix of all kinds of traits.
Where'd Wiley go? Where's Wiley? Ah, there she is. Paw?
Do you remember being an ancient wolf? Do you ever feel the call of the wild?
You're a renegade cop, and I'm a con woman with nothing to prove. But together, we could really solve this murder.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but all of them are pure love.
Welcome back to Sports Talk here. It's going to be an exciting few questions here because we're back to the Steelers, because after Mike Tomlin stepped down as Steelers head coach following their playoff loss to the Texans, the team went on a search for their 4th head coach since 1969. Ultimately, they landed on the hometown guy, a guy who's won a Super Bowl against the Steelers, a guy who was sitting on his couch for the last year because no one wanted to hire him. The Steelers hired Mike McCarthy, who was almost a decade older than Mike Tomlin. So, Josh, did Art Rooney make the right decision at head coach?
One word, Casey. No. No. No, it was not
Wrong.
the right hire.
Why, Josh?
Wrong.
Just to simply put it, when you have so many years of Mike Tomlin, and I've made it known to a lot of you guys, I was a Mike Tomlin fan. I did not want him to leave. But when a coach like him steps away after such a long tenure, you kind of sit there and you think, you know what, maybe it's good that we get some modern football back in Pittsburgh. You know, try to revitalize the team. We're going to get something new, something fresh. And then when you replace that with a guy who's just worse than Mike Tomlin, has a worse winning percentage, hasn't been to the playoffs since 2017, I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, why? He's almost been practically run out of town his last 2 tenures when they've ended, just because they've had teams that are of the level to be successful and they were not successful. So again, my question is, how is this a good hire, Nick? Like, I don't understand how you can sit there and say it's good when he hasn't been, like I said, hasn't been to the playoffs since 2017. So we're just getting another guy who has been lacking in the playoffs. Yes, he's offensive minded, but like, we don't have a quarterback.
I think it all comes down to what his coaching tree could be. I mean, Tomlin's biggest struggles were how bad his coordinators were. But think about Mike McCarthy and the guys that have been under him that have gone on to have head coaching gigs. You got Kellen Moore, you got Schottenheimer, you got Joe Philbin at the Dolphins, Ben McAdoo at the Giants. I mean, you have guys who go on to become coaches. And under Tomlin, you got nobody. And Mike McDaniels brings not Mike McDaniels, sorry, I was looking at the screen there. And Mike McCarthy brings in that winning pedigree. He's had more playoff wins than Tomlin, and he's an offensive-minded guy. Tomlin was defensive-minded, and it was getting stale. Mike McCarthy has had a year off, but I think Mike McCarthy has progressed better as the NFL has aged than Mike Tomlin has.
I mean, Nick,
and he's got a good pedigree with quarterbacks.
Nick, here's the thing. You talk about the coordinators, and the reports are coming out that Mike McCarthy is close to bringing in the Raiders
defensive
DC coordinator as the next Steelers defensive
Well, he's not working with the
coordinator.
Raiders defense. He's working with the Steelers defense.
I understand that, but like having a
The
top
Raiders
20
defense is awful. There's guys working at Subway that are putting on the D-line. You're hoping to stop NFL
but
players.
here's the thing, Nick. Here's
It's
the thing.
embarrassing.
When we have looked at that team, and that team is giving up an average of over 42 points some of these games. Like
Name someone other than Max Crosby on that D-line.
on the D line, no, I know, I agree. I'm saying
Their
that's
whole
not a lot
roster's
to
from
work
Ball
with.
State.
But Nick, you can't just keep baiting this thing of like, like yeah, they
I'm
didn't have a lot of
saying-
people
I'm saying,
to work
Josh,
with. Nick.
I'm saying you should give it a chance. I'm saying
give
it
it a
sounds like
chance,
you
Nick.
are upset because Mike Tomlin is
He
gone.
signed a 5-year
and you're
deal.
scared of change.
It's a
You're
5-year
scared of change.
I'm
Mike
scared of change.
McCarthy-
You agreed.
Mike
You like the hire. I
Well,
wanted
I do
a
like the
Rams
hire.
guy.
I like the
Guys-
hire. Mike McCarthy is going to bring a Super Bowl to Pittsburgh.
That's
And
a bold
You
take.
can quote me on it right
Very
now.
bold take, Nick. I personally doubt it happens, but we will see if you are proven right, if Mike McCarthy is proven right as the hire for the Steelers. Now, for the past few weeks, the NFL has gone through quite the coaching carousel once again with hirings and firings that have made plenty of headlines. But Nick, out of all the hires that teams have made so far, which one is the very best?
Well, I messed up, and I was so excited about him earlier that I accidentally said his name. Mike McDaniels is the best hire. I mean, he was being thrown around for the Browns or the Ravens jobs, and I'm very lucky that he's not in the AFC North against my Steelers. And any coach or coordinator who can make Tua score 70 points is a genius. I mean, he's a very intelligent offensive coordinator. He's so creative. And think about who he's working with. He's got Justin Herbert. He's got an offense with Marion Hampton, Vidal, McConkey. He's underneath John Harbaugh. He's set up in a perfect situation with a young quarterback. And I already know you're going to mention Justin Herbert's pedigree and the hypothetical around Justin Herbert.
If
this
man.
offensive coordinator is great.
Yeah, listen, I'm just going to say real quick, I don't think it's a bad hire. I just look at his success with the Dolphins, and I just don't
That's
think
a head coaching
I don't
job.
think
It's not a coordinator
I think he
job.
gets a better
Not every
quarterback.
coordinator is meant to be a head coach, Josh.
Yeah, okay, but I'm talking about the offensive output. He gets a better quarterback, yes, but he downgrades at wide receiver and he downgrades at running back. He's not going to make Omarion Hampton, who looked ill-equipped for the NFL, look like A-Chain. You know a guy who I think is going to bring a lot out of the pieces he has? It's John Harbaugh with the Giants. I look at that team and I just think you didn't need necessarily a great scheme guy, a guy who's going to go in there and necessarily be make Jackson Dart throw for 70, as Nick only cares about. I care
just
about
dissed on
bringing
Mike
stability
McCarthy
to a shaky
doing the same old
franchise. This
thing.
franchise has been so shaky over the last couple of years, and he's going to bring back that sense of calm, right? He had the Ravens consistently good. Yes, there were a couple down years, but overall, his tenure was consistently good with the Ravens, fighting for playoffs at least, at the minimum. And I just think he's a proven veteran guy, obviously with his coaching pedigree, that is perfect for such a young
How is Mike
core of
McCarthy
guys.
not proven
with
too?
scattered-
How is Mike McCarthy not proven if you're just going to talk about Harbaugh? Harbaugh could not have success with Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP, never been to a
Mike
Super Bowl.
McCarthy, dude? What are we talking about Mike McCarthy for?
I was talking about Mike McCarthy because you just said that he's old and doesn't do things.
Yeah, but he's got a
John
young
Harbaugh
core.
just failed with even better. He's going from Lamar Jackson to Jackson Dart, and you think it's going to be better? How do you
Listen,
think it's
we
gonna be
can
better?
sit there and
The
debate about how the
Giants
Ravens and
organization,
everything. I'm just
with
saying
their
that the
general
Giants
manager,
are going to be a good team because they have finally someone at the helm that knows what they're doing.
Well, we'll see which team gets the most stability out of their hires. I doubt Justin Herbert will perform in the playoffs, but we will see. Now, yesterday, it was reported that Bill Belichick, who won 6 Super Bowls as head coach of the Patriots and 2 more as defensive coordinator for the Giants, did not reach enough votes to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. There have been reports that some voters left him off as a punishment for the cheating allegations while on the Patriots. But, Josh, what is your reaction to Bill Belichick not being a first-ballot Hall of Famer?
I'm pretty sure I share the same sentiment many people across America who care about football share, and that is it's definitely shock. I mean, I saw the one quote that was apparently put out by Bill Belichick that Schefter reported on where Bill Belichick apparently asked rhetorically, what is a guy supposed to do? And that's kind of what I agree with. I don't understand what more a coach has to prove in order to be a first ballot guy. I do understand the cheating stuff, and that's why myself, especially as someone who comes from Pittsburgh, who has grown up rooting for the Steelers, yeah, I'm a little bit biased towards that, but I do think the cheating thing is legit. I think that is something that should damage someone's reputation. But overall, 8 Super Bowls. I do think he can kind of get a little bit up there in terms of like how people talk about him as the greatest guy who's ever been a part of football ever, no matter player, coach, fan, whatever it may be. I think, though, overall, he's got to be first ballot. I don't think anyone is going to sit there with their chest up and say that Bill Belichick does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame first ballot.
I mean, it's not even a question, honestly. I mean, when Tom Brady inevitably is going to be up for the Hall, is he going to be not a first ballot?
Exactly.
I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and I believe that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. I mean, he was able to develop the greatest quarterback, and a duo that should likely be in the Hall. I mean, Bill Belichick will obviously be in the Hall, but it's a little bit of a stain not putting him in the first, and it feels very personal from some of the people who did not vote him in. And I know those people would never show their faces and say that they didn't vote for him. I
honestly think, though, that's maybe what so much of the outrage is from when it comes to the players. Like Mahomes said something about, I saw Robert Kraft put out a statement a little bit ago. I think a lot of these guys are kind of thinking, that if Bill Belichick can't get in their first ballot, am I going to get in there first ballot? You know, I think a lot of those guys are it's such an unwanted precedent for the rest of eternity until, because you can't undo this mistake. Yep. I think it's just going to kind of be a negative stain, like you said, Nick, on the Hall of Fame because, like I said, you can't go back and undo it. Is Tom Brady going to be first ballot at this rate?
I think also another point is a lot of people have, or at least some people have been mentioning, Belichick's record without Tom Brady is less than impressive. It is a losing record, whereas Tom Brady, when he left Belichick, went on and won another Super Bowl. So for some people, when you combine the cheating allegations and the record without Brady, they say, well, maybe there's a case. What do you...
I don't think so. Tom Brady was in a good situation, and Bill Belichick had Cam Newton.
He had 8 Super Bowls. He has more Super Bowls than Brady still. So,
well, at the end of the day, he's not first ballot. But coming up here on Sports Talk, we are a week and a half out from Super Bowl 60, and we have asked students around campus who is going to win. You'll hear our takes as well. So stick around here on Sports Talk.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Today, we face an unprecedented crisis. Tens of millions of refugees have been forced from their homes. But you can make a difference. Turn disruption and despair to hope and opportunity. Even small amounts make a big difference. Provide shelter, support, or jobs in your community. The more we understand, the greater sense of belonging we create. Act now. Visit supportcrisisrelief.org.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome back here to Sports Talk. Now, at the start of the NFL season, we went out around RMU's campus and interviewed students about who was going to win the Super Bowl. So we're going to look back at those takes as well as see who they pick for Super Bowl 60 in the upcoming matchup and see if RMU has enough ball knowledge.
Who's winning the Super Bowl this year?
Steelers, obviously.
I got my boys, the Steelers.
I think the Steelers will win.
I'm gonna have to go with the Ravens.
The Bengals.
The Buffalo Bills. I have confidence in Josh Allen.
Kansas City Chiefs.
It sucks to say it, but it's probably going to be either the Chiefs or the Eagles again.
It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Baltimore Ravens.
It is going to be the New York Giants.
No doubt in my mind, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers. Wait, who's in the Super Bowl this year?
Bruh.
I'm going to say the Seahawks. You know, the last times these teams faced each other, the Patriots won on the last play of the game in a heartbreaking fashion. So I think it's time for Seattle to finally have their revenge and get that Super Bowl #2.
See, my heart and my mind says Seattle, but knowing how the NFL is, more often than not, evil prevails. And I think just because of that and the vibes, New England gets their 7th.
The Seahawks are going to lay belt to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I stopped watching the NFL when the Steelers lost, so I'll say the Seahawks.
I think the Seahawks are going to win because I was told that they might.
All right. Who I think is going to win the Super Bowl is the Patriots. Mainly because I don't like the Birds.
I think the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl this year for one simple reason. Drake May.
I think the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl this year because birds supporting birds. That's it.
I believe the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm predicting a score of 7-6.
I'm going to say Seahawks. I am just excited to bet. I don't care who wins. I'm just going to bet, and that's all I care about.
I think the Seahawks are going to wipe the floor with the Patriots because the Patriots had a way easier schedule, and I just don't think they're ready for that Seahawks D, and Sam Darnold is going to ball out.
Well, guys, after seeing what the RMU students had to say, what are your predictions for the Super Bowl? Nick?
Well, anybody who is not picking the Seahawks does not know ball. This Patriots team will not be able to hang with the Seahawks. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be first play of the game. Under center, Sam Darnold. Running with Kenneth Walker. All the way down the field for a touchdown, and they're never going to let off the gas. Final score 35-13. Not going to be close.
I just pictured that. That was a good description.
You just pictured it?
Nick, it's funny that you said can't hang because if you look at my notes right here, it literally says Pats can't hang with the hottest team in the league. I don't know if there is as dominant a team completely we have seen because the Seahawks, man, they're just dominant. Every win is a blowout. I don't think the power of Drake May and Michael May is going to be able to help them this time. I just think that it's the Seahawks and JSN and Darnold, man.
Guys, so when I was asked this question and when I saw this question, it was Super Bowl predictions, not who's going to win the Super Bowl. So my prediction, because I didn't want to go on air and say the Patriots are going to win. I didn't want us all to say the Seahawks because then they would lose. I honestly think that the quarterbacks are going to get injured from the electromagnetic fields from Levi Stadium. It's been going around the last couple months that the reason the 49ers have so many injuries every single year is because they sit on an electromagnetic field. It's seriously anything that's going on, and their tendons weaken. And I honestly think one of the quarterbacks is going to get injured early on in the game and then ruin the Super Bowl.
Casey, I did see that actually. But I also saw something else this week. So this regular season, the Patriots, only 3 of their opponents did not fire a coach or a coordinator on their team. They had to beat Jarrett Stidham to get to the Super Bowl. They beat C.J. Stroud, who all but gifted the game to them.
And
it felt like Christmas in January.
They scraped by those games.
So many gifts for the Patriots.
But what do we think about the electromagnetic fields, if we're being honest?
I don't think they've been there long enough for that to happen, Casey. If you do just a little bit more research, you would see that they train there literally for months.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, we don't know what those guys, they might have metal in their bodies putting them through the season, and it might get affected by the electromagnetic fields.
The Seahawks have some experience in Levi Stadium.
All right, well, we'll see what happens in Super Bowl 60. But before we go, we have some exciting news to share. The Sports Talk universe is expanding. We bring to you the Sports Talk podcast. Every week after the show, besides this week, we'll be going live afterwards on RMU Radio as our talent and others take a deeper dive into our topics and take the heat from some callers. The next day, it will be posted for streaming, and the first episode, which is a live reaction to Mike McCarthy's hiring, is now live. So Josh, Nick, I'm sorry we're not paying overtime, but it's going to be good to have you guys on this podcast. But, guys, that's all we have here for Sports Talk this week. My name is Casey Irwine, was joined by Nick Evans and Josh Woodman. It's been good to have these guys back. Make sure to tune in next week and stay warm. Good night, everyone.